Everybody, welcome to the show. Around the Nation right here, TYT Nation. Jeff Waldorf here with you. So we're running super late today, so I did not get a chance to even finish up my graphics. Wonderful. So I'll have to throw those into post. That's, of course, post. You know what? None of that matters. We got a lot of stories here. We got some important stuff. We're going to talk about the budget. We got Sean Hannity. We got the Teamsters looking after immigrants, which is awesome. Bernie Sanders. So a lot of stuff. Jeff Sessions being, of course, Jeff Sessions. So let's go on with that. Like I said, we got a lot of stuff here. Let's start out with secret sperm. You're going to love this story. Okay. All right, so we'll get that out of here. That's from yesterday. Just like pretend there's a sidebar there for today. Today's a disaster. Okay. Anyway. So professional. So Sean Hannity is a complete goober, right? Now, of course, on his show, he's still talking about weird conspiracy theories involving Hillary Clinton, Robert Mueller. I mean, you name it, man. There's weird conspiracy theories. His newest one is about Obama and his portrait containing secret sperm. So, of course, I am talking about President Obama's recent portrait. So, presidential portrait, this is, of course, a long-standing tradition that goes all the way back to the time of George Washington. So, now, the president, of course, President Obama did something a little bit different than most presidents do. Maybe on the fact that he's the first African-American president. I don't know. I guess that would make sense, right? And let me show you. Let me show you what he did differently than other presidents. Okay. Oh, there you go. So now most presidents, of course, have like them sitting behind a desk looking busy or presidential. Then you got President Obama sitting out there in a field of flowers. Okay, hey, look, that's lovely, right? So where normal people see flowers, Sean Hannity sees perversion. Now, writing on Twitter, Hannity said that Obama's portrait was loaded with, quote, inappropriate sexual innuendo that showed a stark contrast to predecessors. Now, this, of course, had a link to Hannity.com. There was an article that was put out. Strangely enough, I just went to check that article again before the show, and it's gone. 404. Like, deleted. So this article was so, I guess, so bad, so outlandish that Hannity was like, got to get rid of it. Okay, this was a bad idea. I immediately regret my decision. Okay. Now, the article before it was pulled, of course, had the headline of Portrait Perversion. Obama portrait features secret sperm. Artist joked about killing Whitey. Oh, man. Wow, that's controversial. No, the post itself said, controversy surrounding Ken Hyde Wiley's wildly non-traditional portrait of the commander-in-chief broke out within minutes of its unveiling. Yeah, it broke out because of idiots like you. Like, that's the controversy. Somebody looks at that and goes, oh my God, how dare he? How dare he? So, no, you're the source of the controversy. But I love how they say, controversy broke out. Okay, hey, whatever. Now, it continues by saying, controversy with insiders claiming the artist secretly inserted his trademark technique, concealing images of sperm within the paintings. Oh my God. Horrible. Horrible. His portraits initially depicted African-American men against rich textiles or wallpaper backgrounds, whose pattern he has likened to abstractions of sperm, according to a New York Times article written back in 2008. They added that some of the subjects were famous rap and sports stars, others not. No, see, he doesn't actually put sperm in the photos. But the patterns that he comes up with are sometimes likened to abstractions of sperm. That's not the same as putting sperm. Anyway, now let's get to the kill Whitey portion. You're going to love this. They said more shocking were comments Wiley made in 2012 while discussing a recent work that featured a black woman decapitating a Caucasian woman. Imagery, Wiley said, was based on the biblical story of Judith. He told New York Magazine, quote, "It's sort of a play on the kill Whitey thing." Oh my God, it's a play. No, he wants to kill white people. He said it. It's a play. And he had a picture. He painted a picture of a black woman decapitating a white woman. Oh my God. And then Obama later asked him to make his presidential photo. That means Obama, he's the real racist. And by the way, look at the secret sperm. Look at it. In fact, I want to show you that. This is great. Oh my God. Look at the secret sperm. It's right there. It's right there in his forehead. Secret sperm. All right. This is amazing. So, hey, look, I wouldn't have actually noticed that. Does it kind of look like one? Yeah, I guess. Yeah. I mean, sure, it's a vein in his forehead. But I guess some people could look at that and be like, sperm. That's a sperm. So, okay. So the vein kind of looks like, what's the scandal here? What's the scandal? I don't quite understand where the scandal is. And look, who notices that? Who's like the first person to notice that? And why are you looking for that? It seems kind of a weird thing to go and focus on. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's like the kind of people who notice penises everywhere. Things that look like penises. Like, dude, why are you looking for that? Is there something like, hey, man, look, this is 2018. Most of the world's pretty good with gay people. So, like Hannity, if you keep noticing these weird things like penises and sperm everywhere, what does that say about your thought process? Just saying. Am I saying Sean Hannity is deep in the closet as Narnia? No, I'm not saying that. But I'm not saying that he's not. I'm just asking questions. I'm just asking questions. But look, again, I'm not a crazy right-winger. I don't notice these things. The first things I noticed with this is, hey, it's got a different background than most pictures. And it's lovely. It's filled with flowers. But see, everything, and this is what's really going on here, everything with Obama has to be a scandal. I mean, look, even when President Obama is not in office, it still has to be a scandal. Like, remember the tan suit? And all this is is happening while President Trump is being investigated by the FBI. I'm not saying anything, I'm just saying, for crimes like money laundering, they've got, ties with Deutsche Bank, got Mueller, that's in his financial statements right now. A lot of his people that were formerly in the administration, a couple of them already indicted. So, look, his administration's kind of falling apart. But no, let's not focus on any of that. Let's talk about Obama's secret sperm. Again, going back to the tan suit. If he, in that picture, was also wearing a tan suit, I'm pretty sure Sean Hannity's head would have exploded by now. It would have been way, way too much for him. Just say it. Republicans, man. Jesus. Freaking goofballs. I don't know. All right. Let's move on. We got something more serious. We got Donald Trump's budget. Oh, boy. Okay. So yesterday, we got a look at the Donald Trump budget. Now, this budget is just as bad as we knew it would be. So among some of the priorities held by the Republicans would be, of course, giving more money to the military. Hey, that's a Republican given. We all knew that they were going to send more money to the military. because they love the military-industrial complex. That money does not go to the troops. That goes into defense contractors, into the pockets of the big corporations. And another big chunk of money would end up going into the border wall with Mexico. And just like we warned you before, I remember talking about this on the show. I remember Trump officials coming out and saying, oh, no, this is not going to happen. Believe me, we're not going to do any of this. Well, since we just gave $1.5 trillion to the rich in tax cuts, the plan in this budget is to make up that money by cutting food assistance and any sort of assistance programs to the poor. So, look, this budget, like I said, has a lot of cuts in it. Now, the reason, okay, so I'm going to give you some context here, right? So, in this budget, like I said, a lot of proposed cuts. And I want to show you a video here of President Trump campaigning on the things that he would not cut. And let's see if it holds up to what's actually in this budget. Let me show you this video real quick.
You've been paying into Social Security and Medicare, by the way. Let's put them into it, because Medicare does work. With both, you have tremendous waste, fraud, and abuse. We're going to take care of that, okay? But we're not going to cut your Social Security, and we're not cutting your Medicare. We're going to take jobs back from all these countries that are ripping us off. We're going to become a wealthy country again, and we're going to be able to save your Social Security. We're not taking it.
We're not taking it. We're not taking it. We're going to save your Social Security. We're not going to cut your Medicare, because Medicare works. Medicare works. We're not going to cut it. Or are you sitting down for this? Trump's budget would cut $554 billion from Medicare. Oops. Again, you just heard him promise not to cut Medicare. But of course, Republicans, they've always wanted to cut Medicare. They've always wanted to cut things like Social Security and Medicaid. They want to cut these. See, they call it entitlements, right? And on that, actually, you know what? That's true. It is an entitlement. You know why? Because it's your money. You're entitled to it. Okay. Now, on Social Security, are you ready for this one? Trump's budget also calls for slashing Social Security's disability program by $72 billion. What happened? What happened? You said you didn't want to cut Social Security. What happened? What happened? He lied to you. He lied to your face. That's what happened. Medicaid, same thing. Trump's proposal would create a, quote, market-based healthcare grant that could fund programs in addition to the traditional Medicaid program, a change that would cut Medicaid spending by about $250 billion. So, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, disability, all of that, cut. Gone. Now there's more. You didn't think that's bad enough? Just wait. Food stamps. The White House has also proposed cutting $214 billion from the food stamp program, also known as SNAP, over the next 10 years. So, again, food stamps, gone. Now, this year's proposal comes just days after Congress voted to increase military spending and domestic spending by about $500 billion. Now, those domestic program increases, gone. Democrats, you guys are suckers. You actually believe Republicans when they said they'd raise spending on the domestic side, when they said they wouldn't cut these programs. How much of a sucker do you feel like? No, here's what they did. They cut taxes for the rich. They give more military spending, right? More spending to the Pentagon, $165 billion to the military that already spends over $600 billion, nearly $700 billion now. And now that they've, of course, spent all this money or given all this money to the rich, now they've blown a hole in the budget. And now they're saying, oh, we got to fill that hole. We have no choice. We got to cut food stamps and Medicare and Social Security to pay for those cuts. That's actually a load of shit because taxes don't actually fund spending. See, it's that old trick of, hey, let's give tax cuts, for example, to the rich and spend more money on corporations, and then claim that we don't have enough money to fund these other programs so we can cut them. So that poor people will have to make up the difference. You're going to have to tighten your belts, guys. But in reality, no, we can fund these programs. The problem is that we have a system where we allocate resources towards certain things. Right now, all we're doing is allocating our resources towards the military and corporate welfare. We need to reallocate those resources back to the American people. So, but look, the reason they do this, of course, is that Republicans, they hate the poor. They think they're lazy, they're undeserving, and they're immoral. Now, the only thing that's immoral about these cuts is that they hurt the poorest of the poor. I have more examples, okay? Now, Trump's budget also calls for eliminating home heating assistance through the low-income home energy assistance program. That program helps 6 million households that sometimes are unable to afford to heat themselves during the winter. Can't afford your heat? A sad day for you, man. You should have been born rich. And then, hey, if you were born rich, you'd get tax cuts. But you're not, so I guess you'll have to freeze. Throw it in next to sweater. It'll be fine. Now, Trump's budget also cuts affordable housing programs and imposes work requirements. Now, that means that if you can't find a job, then guess what? They're going to take your house away. You no longer have a place to live. Because, of course, being homeless really helps it when you're trying to find a job. There's more. It'll also cut job training programs. So good luck finding work after you lose your home heating assistance or your home altogether because of the work requirements because you couldn't find a job. Look, this entire budget is nothing more than social Darwinism, okay? If you're born wealthy, or if you're not born wealthy, I should say, and you run into bad luck, well, then you're literally fucked. But if you're born wealthy, as I said before, well, then you get all the breaks in the world because we actually care about you guys as a country, as a party, the Republicans, or the party of the rich. Now, education is also impacted in this. The plan also cuts Pell Grants and eliminates both the subsidized loan program and the public service loan forgiveness for new borrowers, meaning that people with student loans or who need to get student loans or need to get Pell Grants and assistance, fucked. So, again, this hurts the poorest of the poor. This hurts people who are actually trying to get ahead with education. It hurts everybody unless you are wealthy. So this is a Republican budget. More to the military, more for the border wall, less for you. Now, again, I said these are their priorities. So how do the American people feel about Republican priorities? Because, pass or not, this is a blueprint of what they actually want to do, what their goals actually are. So, how do the people feel about this? 80% of people, according to a recent Center for American Progress poll, right? So, look, you got problems with Center for American Progress. I hear you on that. But they actually went out and they polled people about this. And they asked, hey, man, how do you feel about these cuts to these certain programs? Well, they found over a poll, in a poll with over 2,300 people, 80% of them oppose cutting Medicaid. 78% oppose cutting Social Security disability programs. 78% also oppose cutting home heating aid. 77% oppose cutting affordable housing. 66% oppose cutting food stamps and raising eligibility requirements. And 57% oppose work requirements for Medicaid, which, by the way, was already put into effect. So, I don't know, it seems like conservative Republican priorities are not very popular with the vast majority of American people. Now, and look, I also pointed out earlier that half of these things that are being cut are things that Donald Trump promised not to cut. He said, I am not going to cut your Social Security. I'm not going to cut Medicare. I'm not going to cut Medicaid. He, in his budget, again, that's his priorities. He is cutting these things. Now, these are programs that a lot of Americans, including Trump voters, by the way, rely on to survive. I don't blame people who fell into that. Okay? I don't blame people who thought, look, man, I need a change from the establishment. The establishment, the status quo isn't getting me anywhere. I'm working my ass off. I'm working hard, and things just aren't working out. The economy is rigged against us. And absolutely it has been. Okay? Now, I do, however, blame those that would rather vote against their own economic interests in order to, for example, keep the Mexicans out. Or, my favorite, to trigger the libs. What kind of reasoning is that? No, fuck those people. Look, again, this is a gross budget. And if you think that it doesn't matter because some of these provisions will never be enacted, some or most are no-goes, non-starters. Well, look, to be fair, a lot of people said President Trump wasn't going to be president. And besides, this shows their priorities. These are the goals. And so they're going to keep striving to ensure those goals. They're going to keep hacking away at the social safety net year after year until it's gone. Because again, they don't care about the safety net. Mark my words. Republicans don't give a shit about you. Trump does not give a shit about you. And let me add, I think most politicians, whether it be Democrat or Republican, don't give a shit about you. Okay. Let's move on here. We've got more. Now, included in Donald Trump's new budget, among a slew of other money-saving ideas, which would be incredibly harmful to poor people, are the proposed changes to the SNAP program. Now, right now, there are 44 million people on food stamps. Now, you might look at that and be like, oh my God, that's so many people on food stamps. What's going on here? They must either be lazy or whatever. No, actually, a majority of people on food stamps right now, they actually do work or are children, the elderly, and the disabled. So food stamps actually have a pretty rigorous system in order to get there or get these benefits. So people, for example, who are who are older adults without dependents, for example, they already have requirements. They have work requirements, and they can only stay on food stamps for so long. So there's already stringent requirements faced on the food stamp program. And yet, of course, there's this pervasive myth that, oh, no, everybody on food stamps, for example, half the people are young buck, just regular people that could go out and get a job, but they choose not to so they can get free government handouts. Yeah, I always love that nice little myth because it's not based in reality. Now, Trump's proposed changes to the food stamp program outlined in his new budget would impact over 80% of recipients to the program. So this would be a major change. So let me get into the details of what that change actually means. According to NPR, Trump's proposal would require people who receive at least $90 a month from the program to get about half their benefits in the form of a USDA food package, rather than by purchasing the food themselves. So you get a food box. Instead of getting money put on your bridge card or wherever, right, you get a food box. Now, the package recipients would be given would not include fresh fruits or vegetables. Instead, the packages would consist of shelf-stable milk, ready-to-eat cereals, pasta, peanut butter, beans, rice, and canned fruits and vegetables. So, hey man, look, there's your food box. Wonderful. Now, the White House's proposal, they said, would reduce government spending on SNAP by $129 billion over the next 10 years, combined with other proposed changes to the program, basically tightening eligibility requirements yet again. And the changes would shrink SNAP's budget by $213 billion over the same amount of time, which equals about to a 30% reduction. Hey, poor people, I bet you can't wait to get your government food box. Look, I'm actually kind of surprised that government cheese isn't included. You'd think it would. but I guess maybe they're too cheap to throw in cheese. So look, basically what this is doing is they're cutting spending, right? Now, this is something that Republicans love to do for social programs. But what they're also doing is limiting people's options and putting on an additional stigma to recipients of the program. Now, I want to give you a quote here from USDA head Sonny Perdue. He says, he says this is a bold, new, innovative approach, right? But in reality, this is Sonny Perdue and the USDA and the Trump administration, Republicans, telling you that, hey, we don't look. If you're poor, we don't trust you to make your own decisions. We don't trust you to make your own food choices because some of you might buy soda. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to give you your food, and you're going to like it. So again, that's a stigma, right? Because they're saying that these people, since they're on this program, they're irresponsible and they can't make their own food choices. Because only irresponsible people ask for government help during tough times. Because only irresponsible people have tough times. That's what they're saying. Now, I have to remind you that 44% of people who rely on SNAP have at least one family member in the household that actually works. In homes with children, that number goes up to 55%. And look, according to the Center for Budget Policy and Priorities, the average family actually exists on SNAP for less than a year. In fact, more than 80% of recipients work in the year before or after receiving SNAP. So this is people who are basically in between jobs, right? Or they do go through some tough times, or they have some medical issues. It's like, oh man, I guess I'm going to have to go and apply for food assistance for a short while until we get back on our feet. But here's the USDA saying, no, you're going to get it, but we think you're irresponsible. We think you're lazy. So we're going to pick out half your food for you and send it to you in a box. Look, as I pointed out before, through these numbers, they're not lazy. They're not irresponsible. But see, it doesn't matter because Republicans still want to stigmatize them. Now, Perdue, as I said before, said this is bold and innovative. And he said, well, there's no real big changes to this. It maintains the same level of food value as SNAP participants currently receive, provides states flexibility in administering the program, and is responsible to the taxpayers. Now, this is interesting, right? So they say it will save money, but I don't know if they actually have any data on how they would actually distribute this food, because that actually costs money as well. You would need distribution centers, people for making these deliveries. You would have to have people that would go out and purchase these meals and put these boxes together, send them out, etc. So you're creating a whole new distribution system for the 44 million people who will be on food stamps. So that actually does cost money, and I don't see any cost projections in this about that. And here's the other thing. The government under Donald Trump can't even restore power and deliver food to Puerto Rico in a timely period. I know, it's surrounded by water, big water, ocean water, okay? And that's why it was so hard. But no, look, Tesla went out there and actually started doing something before the federal government was able to. So if the government under Republicans can actually do these things within a timely period, how can we expect them to deliver food boxes within a timely period? See, they don't think about all the logistical challenges. They think about how much money can we save, or more specifically, how much can we cut food stamps? How much can we screw people over? It's not about the savings. They don't care about debts and deficits. They showed that. If they actually cared about debt and deficits, they wouldn't have given an extra $165 billion to the military. And they wouldn't have given a $1.5 trillion tax cut for the richest Americans. They wouldn't have done that. No, all they care about is hurting poor people. Because to them, poor people don't deserve the help. Poor people don't deserve basic humanity. the Republican Party right now is mostly made up of people who are social Darwinists. They think, hey, if you're not rich, then, or, you know, if you're poor, if you fall through hard times, that's tough. Sad day for you. We're just going to keep giving more and more to the rich. And like, hey, if you wanted to get some of the benefits of that money, well, then you should have been born rich. We're going to give all that money to them and left the poor fend for themselves. But at least you get a food box. Okay. One more budget-related story here. Now, Senator Bernie Sanders is not happy with the Trump budget, which is basically a reflection of their priorities in the White House. Now, he talked to Politics US. Let me start that again. He told Politics USA in a statement earlier today that the Trump budget introduced is morally bankrupt and bad economic policy. Well, that is fairly clear. He said during the campaign, Donald Trump promised that the wealthy would not get a tax break and that Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid would not be cut. In fact, we have a video of Donald Trump promising not to cut Medicare and Social Security.
You've been paying into Social Security and Medicare, by the way. Let's put them in there, because Medicare does work. With both, you have tremendous waste, fraud, and abuse. We're going to take care of that, okay? But we're not going to cut your Social Security, and we're not cutting your Medicare. We're going to take jobs back from all these countries that are ripping us off. We're going to become a wealthy country again, and we're going to be able to save your Social Security. We're not taking it.
We're not taking your Social Security. We're not going to cut your Social Security. He also made the same promise about Medicaid. We're not going to cut Medicaid. No, we care about poor people, so we're not going to cut your Medicaid. Okay, these programs off limits. Trump's not going to cut them. Trump's going to bring back jobs. Well, that didn't necessarily happen. Now, the budget, of course, does the opposite. Trump's budget, according to Bernie Sanders, pays for his huge tax breaks for the rich and large corporations by slashing Medicaid by $1.3 trillion, cutting Medicare by $554 billion, and slicing $10 billion from the Social Security Disability Insurance Program. He said this budget is nothing less than a major transfer of wealth from the middle class and working families to the top 1% and large corporations. He continues, meanwhile, at a time when the U.S. spends more on defense than the next 12 countries combined, the Trump budget calls for a massive increase in military spending, paid for by cutting $57 billion in domestic spending from the bipartisan budget agreement that was signed into law just a few days ago. So, hey, Democrats that signed this bill, do you feel stupid yet? And the Republicans are like, oh, yeah, agreement. Yeah, we signed an agreement. Guess what? We don't care about the agreement. We don't care at all. In fact, the White House says, let's take that money and we'll put it into more defense because screw you. That's why. That's what this is. Now, he continues by saying this is a budget for the billionaire class, for Wall Street, for corporate CEOs, for defense contractors, and for the wealthiest people in this country. It must be defeated. Now, later on, he also said that this is not just in the Trump budget. This is the Koch budget. So this is what the Koch brothers wanted when it came to a dream budget. Okay. So, look, everything that he says here is true. This budget is a disaster. Now, the good news is that it doesn't have any chance of passing. But there is a reason that it's very important. Look, every president puts out a budget that lays out their priorities. It basically says, this is what we would do if Congress wasn't in our way. This is exactly what we want to see for the country. This is our vision for the country. Okay, well, now you see the vision, the Trump vision for the country. Cutting food stamps, turning it into a literal poor person's blue apron, cutting Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, housing assistance, heating assistance, student or Pell Grants, making sure that they cut student loans, screwing over borrowers, all while giving more and more money to the military industrial complex and a wall between us and Mexico. Speaking of the wall, I'm starting to think that that wall might be there to keep us in. Because after the Republicans are done selling off this country to the private interests and screwing over poor people, a lot of us are going to want to leave. Just saying. But seriously, though, these are the priorities of the so-called populist Republican president. This is what right-wing populism gets. Add in a bit of demagoguery for Muslims and Mexicans. This is what a Republican populist looks like. Doesn't look like he's got very popular priorities. There was a poll where a lot of these cuts were very deeply unpopular with the majority of the American people. At best, President Trump doesn't care about you. At worst, he's lied to your face multiple times, over and over. Now, sadly, I do not see a lot of diehard Trump supporters caring, even if it's their own benefits that end up getting cut. This is a guy who bragged about being able to shoot somebody in Fifth Avenue and not lose a single person. And I'm starting to think that if it's a poor person that ends up getting shot in Fifth Avenue by Trump, his supporters would cheer him on. Republicans don't care about you. If this is their priority, if these are their goals, then that should show you that everything you need to know about what the Republican Party actually stands for. Okay. That's enough about the budget. Let us move on. With ICE officials now running free to arrest and detain immigrants all over the country, there are groups that are starting to fight back. Now, one of them includes one major labor union. Now, according to The Hill and the New York Daily News, about 120,000 Teamsters across Long Island and New York City are preparing to become what they call a sanctuary union. So what does that mean? It means that they're actually learning how to deal with immigration officials at their workplaces. They say that supervisors and frontline workers are now learning about their rights and how they can respond when ICE officials come to their place of work. Training topics include learning about different types of warrants, what constitutes an ICE raid, and they are also being trained on how to respond if union members are stopped while driving or being confronted at home. Now, the training urges members to honor the principle of union solidarity before immigration laws, which, of course, has right-wingers, heads exploding. How dare you put union solidarity above immigration law? We're the party of law and order. Ah. Okay. I think this is great, though. Now, the Teamsters, they want to go after federal immigration officials and challenge them after one of their members, a man named Aber Garcia Vasquez, was deported back in August to Guatemala after he had shown up to a routine appointment with immigration officials. So this is what's happening, right? So people will go to their regularly scheduled check-ins, right, to make sure that they stay at least on the right side of the law, even though they're not citizens. They still check in and have their work permits and things like that. Check in with ICE, okay? Check in with immigration. You're following the law. You're doing what you're supposed to do, even though you're here illegally. Well, Eber Vasquez, or Garcia Vasquez, did that, and they hauled him away and deported him back to Guatemala. He had no criminal record. There was no reason to send him back since he was doing everything that he was supposed to do. But see, Trump now has ICE no longer going after the bad ones. They're going after what they call the good ones. So when these people check in, ICE officials take the opportunity to grab them, deport them. Pretty soon, I'm thinking that a lot of people are no longer going to show up to their appointments for fear of being deported. So now these union members, after this happened, they got together and they said, look, we're going to protect our own because the government is no longer protecting you, and we care about our fellow workers. In fact, Teamsters Joint Council 16 President George Miranda told the Daily News at a meeting last week saying that, quote, we were all appalled at what happened to Aber. Aber is part of our family. We and the Teamsters rely on each other to get through the tough times. Miranda said that after Garcia Vasquez was deported, the group saw and felt that concern, and now that we are responding to it. They said, and that includes all our members from all backgrounds. When we're out on strike, we're all the same on the picket line. What matters is that you're a Teamster and you're fighting with us. So I love that. I love that saying. I love that quote because that's saying, hey, look, I don't care where you're from. I don't care what your name is. I don't care who you are. You're our brother. You're part of us. You're our family. And we stick together. And we stay strong. And so, yeah, we're here to protect each other against, unfortunately, the government. ICE officials, look, I'm going to say it. They're the new brown shirts, okay? They're literally going after everyone. They're not going after the bad hombres. They're going after anyone and everyone. It doesn't matter. If you're here illegally, gone. Even if you're following your check-ins, even if you're following your appointments, doesn't matter. You're gone. We're going to deport you to a country where sometimes you have no history with or very little history with. And hey, look, if you have a family, if you have a home, if you have a business, doesn't matter. We're going to send you back to a place with nothing but the clothes in your back and whatever's in your pockets. Because that's it. Because we don't care. It's gotten so bad that even some Trump supporters who, like I said, are like, we hate illegal immigration. We think that people should get in the right way. And, you know, that illegal immigrants, they should leave. They should leave. Even some of them are like, whoa, wait a minute. Juan's a good one. Juan's one of the good guys. Why are you taking him? Why are you deporting him? Well, it doesn't matter to us if Juan is illegal because he's a good guy. He's a pillar of the community. I've seen stories like this before. I didn't think that he was going to deport this guy. I thought you were just going after the criminals. I thought you were going after the gang members and the people that do like are the ones that are criminals, the bad ones. But no, they're not just going after the quote unquote bad ones. They're going after everybody. Under Trump, ICE arrests have increased by 42%. He said he was going to go after all the immigrants. He made his position very, very clear. You didn't want to see it because you didn't want to see it. Now, thankfully, we do have groups out there that are actually protecting people, right? Nobody's out there actually trying to protect actual criminals. They actually make up a very, very small number of immigrants. In fact, immigrants here actually commit less crimes than native-born Americans. But nonetheless, there's that demagoguery that's going on of Mexicans and people who stay here, illegally, past their visas. And by the way, a majority of these people are hardworking people, jobs and families. They have lives in the United States. Some of them, as I said before, are business people. They've created jobs. They're pillars of their communities. Even the Trump supporters like them. And yet, these are the people being targeted. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to Donald Trump. It doesn't matter to ICE officials. It doesn't matter to immigration. It doesn't matter to some of their more racist followers that want to demagogue them and blame all their problems on other people. They're going to do that because it doesn't matter to them how good these people actually are. If they're here illegally, that's it. They're gone. You voted for it. Don't be surprised if you get exactly what you wished for. Okay. One more here. It's about Jeff Sessions. On Monday, Attorney General Jeff Sessions had addressed a gathering of the nation's sheriffs. Now, he was speaking before the National Sheriffs Association, that is, of course, a trade group that represents roughly 20,000 law enforcement officials across the country. Now, that makes sense, of course, because Jeff Sessions is the top law enforcement official in the country. He is the Attorney General of the United States Department of Justice. So, look, him addressing the sheriffs, not an issue, right? I don't know anybody who made it an issue, whatever. However, what he said is a little bit problematic. I'm going to show you. Now, see, while addressing this association, he might have let a little bit of his racism slip. He said during the speech, quote, "The office of sheriff is a critical part of the Anglo-American heritage of law enforcement. We must never erode this historic office." Wait a minute. Anglo-American heritage of law enforcement. Wait, what does that mean? Why not just say proud heritage of law enforcement? That gets across the same point. Why add in Anglo-American heritage? Which to me, of course, sounds, well, like he's referring to white people. So here's the thing, right? And this is more interesting context. That part wasn't even in his prepared remarks. So just off the top of his head, while addressing a room of mostly white policemen, knowing how some people out there view him as a racist, he decided that he was going to deviate from his prepared remarks to say something that could be construed as a little bit racist. I'm sure that's just a coincidence, though. I'm sure that wasn't a dog whistle or anything like that. Oh, no. We have this proud Anglo-American heritage, and we've got to make sure not to erode this historic office. Take it as you will, right? Now, he has more to his speech. He said, quote, "The most important thing that any government does is keep its citizens safe." Okay, yeah, that's fair. The first civil right is the right to be safe. Okay. I'm not necessarily sure about that. It's actually, I mean, to be treated equally, that's a civil right. We actually just, look, yes, part of the government's job is to keep us safe from foreign threats and domestic threats. Absolutely fair, right? Part of the also part of the government's job is to ensure the welfare of their citizens and to make sure that people are treated equally. But I don't think he's so concerned about that as to the keeping people safe part. And by people, I mean certain people. Now, he says, quote, "Too often," and he continues from that, "too often, politics gets in the way of that mission." So what does he mean by that? Too often, politics gets in the mission of keeping people safe. Well, look, I think that he's saying that the idea that black people challenging police tactics and pointing out abuses suffered by the hands of police, as well as movements like Black Lives Matter, are getting in the way of, quote, the mission. What is the mission? I mean, look, is it supposed to be keeping people safe? Well, the amount of unarmed people being shot and killed by the police happens to continue growing up. So, no, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't call that safety, unless, of course, the only person's safety that you actually care about is the police officers. Now, do I care about police safety? Of course I do, right? But also, I have to point out that when you put on that uniform, you accept that there's a certain amount of risk associated with your job, and that your main concern should be to protect and serve the other people. Instead, what we have is people that are protecting and serving the shit out of you. But the thing is that that authority is why we give you weapons, and that's why we give you a badge, and that's why we give you this power. It is to protect others, as well as, yes, yourself, right? And I think it's not too much to ask that you make sure that no matter what you do, you use that weapon as a last resort, even if it means putting yourself as a police officer in a little bit of danger in order to de-escalate these situations. Now, some officers do that, and I give them all the credit in the world. I've covered police officers that have done that before, that have done everything that they could, when they could have easily shot and killed someone, to make sure that, hey, look, we don't want a loss of life here. We want to make sure that we save your life too. And that's what you're supposed to do. Now, some of those officers that have done that have actually suffered unintended consequences. One has lost their job in response to not shooting someone. It's insane. It's insane. Which is why, of course, we need major, major reforms of the system. Obviously, retraining, retooling. Not only that, but a huge change in the mentality surrounding these police departments. And I think we need to actually look at what the mission of policing is supposed to be. Because for the longest time, policing has been used to keep down civil movements, keep down protesters, and also protect the wealthy and powerful. That is something that absolutely needs to change. That is the mentality that I'm talking about. That's the mission that I'm talking about. They're supposed to. What the mission should be is to protect and serve all people, not just the powerful, not just the wealthy, and not just white people. So part of that, of course, change of mentality involves removing the focus on what Sessions calls the Anglo-American heritage of policing. We've got to remove that racism, that white supremacy. Get that out of our policing. This is the part that focuses on punishing black communities and other communities of color rather than protecting them. We need to eliminate that part. So the very part that Sessions says he wants to maintain is the very part that we absolutely have to get rid of if we ever want the police to do what we want them to do, which is, as I said before, protect and serve all people. Okay. That's it. That's all I got for the show today. Thank you guys for going around the nation with me. Make sure, if you haven't already, please leave us a like, and sharing is caring, of course. We'll have videos up later with proper sidebars. Thank you for going, like I said, thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting us. Patreon.com/TUATNation. That is how you support us. All right. That's it. That's all I got for you guys today. Love you all. Thank you. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, TUAT Nation. We'll see you all tomorrow with Ron Placone.